We are live. Namaskar. On behalf of Indian Classical Music Circle, let me welcome you all to today's session. which ICMC is hosting in memory of Aftab-e-Sitar, the legend of legends, Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, on his 20th Memorial Day. Today, I'm having with me, just like any other similar sessions, Ustad Hidayat Hussain Khan Sahab, Hidayat Bhaiya, who is integral part of ICMC and our annual ritual to remember Khan Sahab. So, Bhaiya, uh, if you could take the session forward, and after that, if you could welcome our distinguished guest for today.
Thank you so much, Rambhai, and welcome to all of you all. Yeah, today marks the 20th anniversary, and it's amazing how um, time flies, and every year we remember him. And me and Rambhai have a conversation before these events, before his birthday and before his death anniversary, that what are we going to talk about? And every conversation we have so much material that it's been 20 years and we've been doing this for quite a few years, and each subject about Vilayat Khan Sahab, Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, each topic is an ocean of information and wealth. Um, I was just sitting and hearing this, and a thought came to my head before we start today's session. I'd like to start with a little story that may give you an insight on the man. This is a few years before he passed away in Calcutta. Um, I आजकल ज़माना म्यूज़िक में बहुत प्रमोशन का है और फेवर्स का है, जिस ज़माने से अब्बा sort of disconnected थे in a manner of speaking, and his beliefs were very different. So बड़ी हिम्मत करके मैं एक बार अब्बा के पास गया कलकत्ते में. मैंने बोला, अब्बा अगर आप एक आध इधर उधर फ़ोन कर दो तो मेरे भी कुछ कॉन्सर्ट्स हो जाएंगे. So उन्होंने मुझे देखा और कहने लगे कि हाँ हाँ बेटा, बड़ा अच्छी बात है. हाँ, एक काम करो, जाओ जरा सितार लेके आ जाओ. मैं सितार लेके आ गया और पापा बिस्तर पे बैठे हुए थे, सॉलिटेयर खेल रहे थे, और मुझे बोला पूरिया में सितार मिलाने के लिए, और मैं नीचे ज़मीन पे बैठा हुआ था और करीब 2.5-3 घंटे तालीम भी क्या, अब्बा से कभी, मतलब एक लिटिल ऑफ टॉपिक जा रहा हूँ, कभी वैसे बैठ के उन्होंने लेसन देना की तालीम बहुत कम हुई. वो हमेशा इशारे देते थे कि ये डायरेक्शन खोल दिया या वो डायरेक्शन खोल दिया, या और फिर हम जब उस पर इम्प्लीमेंट कर रहे होते थे तो वो बताते थे कि ये अच्छा रास्ता है या नहीं है, और किस वजह से नहीं है या किस वजह से अच्छा है. So it was a very open dialogue. It was a very different kind of. It wasn't a sort of a lesson situation. So he's sitting on the bed, and I'm sitting on the floor, and I'm playing Puria, and he's showing me some ways, and he's nodding in the right places, and sort of not nodding in the right places, and then after that, and this went on for a few 2-3 occasions, and after that he says, "Beta, music की जो दुनिया है, it's not like a royal dynasty. कि राजा मर गया और बेटा गद्दी पे बैठ गया. So the world has to accept. And इससे बड़ा प्रमोशन हो ही नहीं सकता जो मैं तुम्हें अभी दे रहा हूँ, और वो है तालीम. एंड तालीम भी मैं तुम्हें डायरेक्ट नहीं कर रहा हूँ. हमारी दुनिया में तालीम जो सीना बसीना भी तालीम होती है. We don't speak to the conscious mind. We speak to the subconscious mind. So the music remains with us, and as we grow older, as we spend more time, as we are more involved with the music, the more that subconscious mind comes into the present. And that even happens in concerts, where you will hear a lot of artists say that they don't plan what they're performing before. It's not really that they don't plan. They do plan. They do think. We do practice. We do plan sometimes that this is what we want to perform, or this is what we want to execute. But when you allow the subconscious mind to take over in that moment, everything that comes out is in that moment, and within that moment is created, where the greatest music is created. So these were the kind of philosophies that I was instilled with from a very, very young age, before I even realized what language, what music, what sur, what rag, or what anything was. Um, and so just like this, there's so many stories about Abba that on a day-to-day basis, on every moment of our lives, we carry with us. And we're so fortunate today that we have Nayan Bhai and surprise guest as well, Ishaan, who's going to join us as well. And Nayan Bhai is such a unique artist. I mean, again, हम लोग स्पेशली म्यूजिक की दुनिया में छोटे लोग बड़े लोगों की तारीफ भी नहीं करते क्रिटिक करना तो दूर की बात है तो मैं नैन भाई के बारे में क्या बोलूं ही इज सच एन अमेजिंग ह्यूमन बीइंग ही इज सच एन अमेजिंग आर्टिस्ट अब्बा ने उनकी स्टेज से तारीफ की है और उन्होंने बोला था कि एक बार कि उनको जो नैन भाई के अकम्पनीमेंट में मज़ा आता है वो शायद ही किसी और के बजाने में आता है उन्होंने उनको बहुत दुआया बहुत प्यार दिया है so we have Nayan Bhai today because he's not only an amazing tabla player but such an amazing sitarist and such an amazing artist overall. So we look forward to the insight that Nayan Bhai is going to share with us today, and even Ishaan. Uh, it's so wonderful to see you and both. Welcome, Nayan Bhai.
Thank you, Hidayat Bhai. Today, we are all here to remember with deep respect, gratitude, and love the one and only Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, whom I used to refer as Vilayat Chacha. You know, he was a legend of legends, a musician among musicians, and what a towering stalwart in the annals of not only sitar but all of Indian classical music. And he took sitar to great heights in many different ways. I mean, to cover him, his music, his persona, we may not have enough time to cover all that. But a phenomenal music, a man who comes once in several centuries. Vilayat Khan Sahab played a very important, influencing role in my life too. Our family, we have had a very long association. My father, who was about 8 to 10 years older to him, knew him since he was about 17 years old when they first met. And their meeting was at the 1945 Vikramaditya Music Festival. His first meeting, we will go into details at some other point. That lasted, their friendship, their affection for each other, their brother-like relation lasted lifelong. And they had so much of mutual respect and love. They shared not only the music on stage or off stage, but everything else in life, you know. And our family association with Vilayat Chacha has brought a very important dimension to my way of looking at music also. Besides the actual body of talim that I got from my father, whether in tabla, sitar or vocal music. When I first heard him, that was a turning point, and I took to sitar also. Although sitar was a part of my family heritage, my grandfather was a sitaria connected with the Senia Rabab family. But my interest in sitar started growing rapidly after listening to Vilayat Chacha in several Baithak concerts and big public concerts also. And I feel he has influenced so many people, generations, I'll say. Not only the next generation after him, but his music is going to influence many coming generations, younger musicians. His contribution is immense, whether we talk in terms of music, technique, the instrument itself. He has brought such important changes to the sitar, the structure of the instrument, the stringing system, the javari, the shape of the beautiful shape of the tumba, the the depth and curvature of the fingerboard. So many changes and a new sound. He has brought about a new sound to sitar, and therefore a new world of sitar came about through his contributions.
Kya baat hai? Actually, interestingly, Nenbhai, you bring this point up about the structural changes, and so people consider Vilayat Khan Sahab to be a very orthodox or conservative person, but if you really see the innovations that he brought about and how he understood technology from the standpoint of the architecture of the sitar, also using the medium of technology that was available to him at that time, of microphones and amplifications, thus the subtle nuances of Gaiki. And it is just a matter of understanding on how you believe in evolution, whether it's a horizontal spread or is it a vertical spread. But again, a very path-breaking and interesting and as you said, generations will sort of be inspired by even the most subtle things that he has given to us. You had so much experience with him, Nenbhai, performing, sharing the stage. How was that? And we would really like to know that from that perspective, and also उनका लय देखने का जो अंदाज था, और development का जो गतकारी में वो develop करते थे. If you could give us some insight on that.
Bilkul, bilkul. What you started with is very important when you said that people think of him to be only conservative. He was deep rooted traditionally, music wise, but he was a radical. I mean, he brought about tremendous changes, a very progressive outlook to sitar and to the sitar music. He added so many expressions to this instrument. And when we talk of Gayaki basically has been there since the Rudravina Been music. It's been there, okay, whether you call it Drupad or Khayal or whatever, it's been there in a very limited way. I can show you a little demonstrations later about Gayaki, how it was before Vilayat Chacha, even among the older few generations back, but how much he took it further by introducing all those various nuances that are typically vocal music, the vocal idiom. And for that, certain changes. I mean, for example, he brought the meaned possibility on sitar to up to 5 notes, 5.5 notes, which was phenomenal. In those days, sitar could bring out only 3 or 4 notes in a mead, in a glide. That's one. And I think essentially, let me tell you, at heart, he was a vocalist. Because not only his talim from his paternal side, the great phenomenal musicians, his father Inayat Khan Sahab, his grandfather Imdad Khan Sahab, great grandfather Sahabdad Khan Sahab, and so on. Not only each generation contributed immensely to the furthering of sitar, but even from his maternal side, he was deeply entrenched as a vocalist. And since he was essentially at heart and soul a vocalist, it came out through his prism, I'll say his phenomenal um, genius and all the assimilations in his life, many other influences also. We'll talk about it a shade later. And how all that he could express through his prism of music. And he made the sitar a complete instrument. And at the same time, I should also point out, because many sitarists of our generation or the coming generation have probably over understood the gayaki. And so the sitar part of it, the sitar language, gets somehow subdued. So he struck a beautiful balance, the gayaki with his left hand, the nuances, and the sitar language, dadri dada, dridri dad, dad da, all these things he maintained. Even on the left hand, the murkis and the khatkas were beautifully, for example, his Tilak Amod is a great example. I'll just try and tell you what I'm trying to say. So he maintained the sitar expressions also. This besides the gayaki, the mean, This is the gayaki. So this, I think, many of the sitarists in the coming generations, in the next generation, should understand what a beautiful balance of sitar, tant ang, and the gayaki ang he maintained. And the gayaki, of course, not just khayal gayaki, but whether he had such a huge repertory, Drupad Dhamar, khayal, Thumri, Dadra, Kajri, Chaiti, and all these various forms came out through his sitar and through his innovated techniques. Another great thing about Khan Sahab is that he constantly moved up the graph. Every decade, it was another Vilayat Khan. Every decade, he was growing to great heights, If you listen to his recordings from the 40s or 50s, and then 60s, then 70s, 80s, you'll see how he goes up the graph. His thought, his vision, his experience, all that comes together. So not only his family training, father's side, mother's side, but important influences like he was deeply touched by the music of Ustad Fayaz Khan Sahab, Abdul Karim Khan Sahab, Mushtaq Hussain Khan Sahab, Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, Amir Khan Sahab. All these influences came into him as a melting pot, and then his own individuality, his own originality, which made him singularly unique in the music world.
Kya baat? Absolutely true. In terms of learning, I think great musicians are the best students, and was so true with Abba. वो कुछ भी सुनते थे, हर interaction में actually, musical or non-musical, हर interaction में he was trying to learn something from it. और जैसे कि आप बोल रहे थे कि गायकी अंग और सितार अंग का जो बैलेंस उन्होंने मेंटेन किया पूरे बजाने में, उनके हर पोर्शन में, आलाप के पोर्शन में उसको एक तरीके से निभाया, जोड़ में उसको अलग तरीके से, बंदिश को लेके उसको अलग तरीके से, झाले में उसको अलग तरीके से। अब्बा एक बार कह रहे थे कि हम लोग at the end of the day we are storytellers. We are storytellers. And we're telling a story through the medium of notes, through the medium, especially as instrumentalists, the only expression we have is notes that we put together, and we communicate what is going on in our hearts with the audience. And at some point, we all become one. But how does that happen? Like, how do you get to that level? Before you can communicate to another person, you need to understand it your own self. So especially when you're playing Gaiki Ang, lyrics, sahitya is very important in that story. So every phrase should be a sentence. It should be, every line should be a word with punctuations, commas, full stops.
And conveying a message.
Exactly. And that story starts from the beginning, and that story continues to the end. And that journey, what topic and how and everything may change as we are having a conversation over here, or we have amongst our friends or whatever. It's the environment, it's that moment that takes that story and that journey. But there is a completion to that story, and that's why it makes it sound complete and finished in the way it sounds. It's not just long memes for the sake of memes.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of sitar players today will play Gaiki from a perspective of virtuosity, or the entire performance from a perspective of virtuosity. So even in Alap, or even the murkis, or even the khatkas, there's just one too many always, because there is no thought of communication or a story behind it.
Right.
It's very virtuosic, but and Abba's playing always had that story. He was always telling you something, and that's why we all connected to it in a very interesting way. And for an experiment, I would ask the audience that next time you're listening to any piece of music, especially instrumental music, visualize it. I mean, visualize a story, or whatever it is. Like, imagine it like a music video. Whether you're up in the mountains or rivers, or it's your love life, or it's spirituality, whatever it is, imagine something, and it'll be, and you will go on that journey with that artist. And it'll be a very interesting experience. Sorry, you're bringing out so many old memories of Abba's conversations. आप इतने खूबसूरती से बता रहे हैं.
No, really, I mean, his imagination also, when he played his music, he must be seeing a certain, whatever, a landscape or a situation.
Ji.
I was taught by my father, for example, when you are playing bhairo or singing bhairo, imagine the first rays of light falling on the Himalayan peaks, or imagine a massive Lord Shiva, who has done penance throughout the night, and slowly his eyes are opening from meditation back to reality. Imagine that kind of a thing. Then you get the feeling of bhairo. And I get this feeling Vilayat Chacha probably also imagine on similar lines, whatever rag he would play, the spirit of the rag, the sentiment of the rag, he would try to paint a landscape in front of his third eye.
Ji.
And express it through his sitar. And this is what made him very unique. I mean, it was not just any one, only meditative or only romantic. No, it was a whole landscape in front of him. So many colors, so many pictures that came in front of his eyes, in front of his mind's eye.
This
क्या बात
diversity, this diversity in the moods and perspectives that makes him unique. Because certain musicians, as you just mentioned, only pathos or only some one particular inclination towards a particular mood is there, but in him it is like so diverse. And
Yes, yes. And I mean, expressing it through his phrases or alap or whatever, even Gatkari.
जी
I'm talking about Gatkari. Amazing Gat collections he had, and his own compositions were striking, were outstanding, brilliant. The first concert when I was a child, I heard in a private concert in someone's home in Bombay. And I remember I was probably 4 years old or 5 years old. I remember him playing Shankara, a Drut Gat, wherein on the sum was a chikari. The gut was such that the chikari came bang on some, and that was something unique. He gave so many dimensions to gut playing. Today, I mean, I don't want to say this, but it's sad to see Gatkari also slowly fading out from sitarists of my generation or younger, and they play single strokes. So what's the difference between sitar and santur in that case? You understand? Ta 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 ta. This is not a gat. You're playing notes.
सही बात है वाह
Similarly, playing too many tihais and tabla designs, then you are playing tabla on sitar. Because हम बुजुर्गों से सुनते थे कि बहुत ज्यादा तिहाई बजाना ये तमीज के बाहर की चीज है, तो ये सारी चीजें अब सितार पर सितार बजे, गायकी बजे या तंत्रकारी बजे, लेकिन सितार बजे, ये चीज आज बहुत कम दिखने में आ रहा है. तो ही वॉज ए रोल मॉडल,
he followed certain principles throughout his musical career, certain value systems, certain things, what to do, what not to do, do's and don'ts. It is
Yeah.
not like that he could not do, but he
Yeah.
deliberately did not do those things just to maintain the quality or maintain that
लाइफ
level or his.
लाइफ में एक एडिटर होना बड़ा जरूरी होता है
He had a
और अगर वो खुद बन जाओ तो बहुत अच्छा है, नहीं तो किसी को अपने करीब रखो जो थोड़ा सा आपको एडिट कर सके,
yeah.
क्योंकि बहुत जरूरी है वो लाइफ में.
Touching upon part of your question earlier, which remains unanswered by me, is he had a fine sense of lay. He really understood good tabla, खानदानी तबला समझते थे. ऐसे बहुत कम इंस्ट्रूमेंटलिस्ट मैंने देखा, बहुत कम क्या नहीं के बराबर मैं कहूंगा, कि जो तबले के लैंग्वेज को और उसमें जो पोएट्री है, जो तबले के अंदर जो शायरी है, तबले के अंदर जो निकास है, जो टेक्निक्स हैं, ये बहुत अच्छा समझते थे खान साहब, बहुत अच्छा समझते थे. और इसीलिए अच्छे अच्छे तबलियों को उन्होंने बचपन से सुना है नजदीक से, और उनके सोबत में तबले की समझ ऐसी उनके अंदर so deeply entrenched that he had a superb sense of lay, and that's why he didn't need to do tihais. He could have done series of tihais one after the other, but his amads gave that full satisfaction of a complete music. तिहाई की बैंग 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 सम पे आना जरूरी नहीं है, पर वो जो आमद जाके मुखड़े पे जाके मिलना, वो अपने आप में उसमें लय दिखता था, उसमें गाना दिखता था, उसमें हर चीज. इट वाज अ म्यूजिकली कंप्लीट, कंप्लीट satisfying idea or phrase or a passage.
सही बात है, वाह.
तो I feel very, very blessed to have, come in close touch with him and to have performed with him. It was a big blessing. The first time that I performed with him, it was organized by Srimati Kishori Amunkarji and her mother Mogubai Kurdikar in Bombay at Rang Bhavan. And Chacha said, told Kishori ji, I want Nayan for accompaniment. That came for me like a dream come true. And on that day, I'll tell you something special. In the green room, as I tuned the tabla, and Arvind Parikh ji was sitting, my father was there, many other musicians were there. And he said, Beta khul ke bajao, he said. Nayan Babu, he used to call me so affectionately. He said, khul ke bajao, main tumko bahut mauka dunga aaj. And once after his alap was over, when he started the gat, and I did my introduction on tabla, and after some time again he gave me, and you won't believe, people say Vilayat Khan sahab tabliya ko mauka nahi dete the, but ye cheez he disproved that day. And after every paragraph or that he played, he signaled to me to play. And probably I played anywhere from 10 to 15 times or even more within that performance. And so much encouragement he was giving me on the stage. He took the mic and he stopped in the middle of his performance and he said, Duniya kehti hai Vilayat Khan tabliye ko nahi bajane dete hain. He said, आज कोई आके कहे, बोले मैं इस बच्चे को इसलिए बजवा रहा हूं, इसको संगत की तमीज है, इसके अंदर गाना बजाना भरा हुआ है और ये खुद सितार बजाता है. क्या बजाना, कैसे बजाना, कितना बजाना, ये इसको इस चीज, इन बातों की तमीज है इस बच्चे को. My God, I mean, such a massive concert. I feel very blessed. And then, of course, many more occasions that I accompanied him, I was able to accompany him. And till the end, I received so much of blessings and love from him, hard to express in words.
And bhai, please tell us your first memory of him, that you remember that first time jab aapki mulaqat hui thi.
First
Ji.
time I accompanied him?
No, personal memory. Like first time you...
Personal. Oh, yeah. There are so many incidents. As I was saying, the Shankara was one.
Mhm.
But I probably have seen him since I was a year old or so, maybe because my father and he traveled together to Europe in 1958. And way back, and they were invited to perform in the Aldborough Music Festival, the Edinburgh Music Festival, and much of it was organized by Yehudi Menuhin, and memorable concerts, Royal Festival Hall, Royal Albert Hall, they performed together. And I don't remember though, but there are pictures of when they came back from the tour, and very successful tour. They interacted with people like Benjamin Britten, Larry Adler, Paul Robeson, and so many people in England, in France, in Belgium. And probably I was 1.5 years old then. And later, so many occasions where I saw him closely. One interesting thing I'll tell you, he was a man of taste. Whether it was dress, whether it was music, whether it was perfumes, whether anything, even his love for Western classical music. He was a great ballroom dancer, by the way. He used to dance beautifully to waltz music. Very elegant in all his tastes. So, and cars. He was gifted a car by the king of Afghanistan, Zahir Shah, Mercedes, which was shipped to Delhi.
No, he drove it to Delhi.
And then, he drove to Delhi.
Yeah,
and
from Afghanistan.
And from Delhi, he drove to Bombay, straight to our home. And we had no idea that he would be at the doorstep. And he rang the bell and I opened the door and there was Vilayat Chacha in a beautiful Lucknowi muslin kurta and loose pajamas. And he was like how he would dress at home, And he said, "Dada kothay," which means, "Where is Dada?" Dada, he used to refer to my father as Dada, older brother. And my father came out and he said, "Dada, chalo, dekho maine kya laya." And he took all of us out and showed the car. And then he said, "Come on, get into the car, everybody." And he drove us a joyride that we got. So, and then, of course, many, many times whenever he came home, one of his most favorite dishes, he loved my mother's cooking of the Ilish March, which is called the Hilsa. And he would always say, "Bhabhi, I'm coming tomorrow, Hilsa, fish," and so on. And everything else. I mean, his sense of dressing, whether, that became a trend. He was a trendsetter. The way he dressed on stage, the bringing in of kurta and churidar was, I think he was probably a pioneer in that. Similarly, the way he dressed in suit, Western suit, impeccable. His way of talking, his way of expressing his thoughts, amazing. A man of class, aristocrat, you can say.
There's a story. अपना साजिद वाजिद भाई थे ना, म्यूजिक डायरेक्टर, उनसे मेरी कुछ साल पहले बॉम्बे में मुलाकात हो रही थी, बात हो रही थी आपकी उनके स्टाइलिश और मर्सिडीज और उनके वो पूरे तरीके से उन्होंने एक बात बताई थी कि लगे बहुत बचपन में अब्बा कहीं आए थे तो वहाँ पे ये लोग भी थे, and Feroz Khan, the actor at that time, also was in the same area, and he said everyone was gravitating. People who didn't even know who Ustad Vilayat Khan was running towards him because he had more charisma, more style, even than the leading film star of that time. So he was saying that मुझे जब भी उनकी याद आती है या उनकी सोच आती है, I always remember him as this charismatic, extremely stylish man. Yeah, and he had a very interesting sense of humor. He connected with people in such a, like anyone who met him, regardless of whether they knew him or not, or understood who he was. I mean, he left an impression, and he always connected with everyone. And again, how everything in his life he felt was a learning situation, which in turn reflected in his music.
Yeah.
And so whenever he would meet people, he would actually talk to them. He would actually have conversations about their life and their interests, which could be furthest away from music. I mean, they could be finance people, bankers, or whatever. He would have a conversation with them about their lives, and that was his way of connecting with them, and then understanding people, and then connecting with them musically. And that's why his repertoire was so diverse. When he would be talking to his students, and there'd be stories about like sir riyaz karo aur kuch mat dhyan do aur kuch nahi karo, he would always say there's a time and place. एक टाइम होता है, एक उम्र होती है जहाँ पे एक सिंगल फोकस होना चाहिए, जहाँ पे वो आप रियाज करो, रियाज रियाज रियाज, उसके बाद वो फिजिकल रियाज घट जाता है और मेंटल रियाज बढ़ने लगता है. और उस in that time frame it is very important to diversify yourself, to have interests in life, to have hobbies in life, to educate yourself in various ways than just music, and then interpret all those aspects into your music and then convey that story.
Yeah. Let me go back a little bit. My father's first meeting with Khan Sahab, I just touched upon it some time back at the Vikramaditya Music Festival, the biggest music festival in those days in India, probably one of the first, 1945. It was, I mean, all the greats were there in that. It was Alladia Khan Sahab's last performance with Kesar Bhai and his son. behind on the Tanpura. And it was
Manji Khan sahab,
also
Manji Khan sahab or Burji Khan sahab?
Manji Khan sahab.
Manji.
Yeah. And of course, my uncle Pannalal ji was very much a part of that festival with my father on tabla, Pannalal Ghosh ji. I'll tell you something about Vilayat Khan sahab and Pannalal ji a little later. And it was the debut of Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan sahab and Vilayat Khan sahab. The first time they performed in Bombay. And it so happened that there was some, whatever, on the stage, there was some artist performing. And in the green room, which had two doors at two ends, in the green room facing the wall, my father saw a young boy, 17 years old, practicing sapat on the sitar, So with such deep concentration that he wasn't aware of people walking up and down, the volunteers, the organizers. There was so much of chaos in the room because of the two doors crossing, But he was totally unperturbed. He was completely into his riyaz. So my father went and sat next to him. They exchanged smiles. And my father was amazed at his concentration power and just watched him play. And their smiles, that was the first friendship that started. In the meantime, Thirakwa Khan Sahab just walked into the green room like a king. And he said, "Chalo beta, now it's his item." So Vilayat Khan Sahab sitar accompanied by Thirakwa Khan Sahab. Thirakwa Khan Sahab had accompanied his father and grandfather also. So in the early years of Khan Sahab,
so if I'm not mistaken, even Thirakwa Khan Sahab accompanied Shujat Bhai.
Yes,
young age.
4 generations.
Yes.
And so in the early years of Vilayat Chacha's life, Thirakwa Khan Sahab played a very important role, supporting him, encouraging him, standing by him, And that Vilayat Chacha told us so many different incidents. So that was the first meeting, and then the friendship with my father grew, and it didn't take too long for and they used to, how in Bombay they used to travel for concerts, they used to catch the local train. My father and Chacha would get into the train and go to maybe Churchgate station or somewhere in that area and play a concert and come back by local train in those days, sometimes a whole night concert, and then walking all the way to a railway station, waiting for the first train in the morning at 5 o'clock to catch the first train back home. Oh, so many interesting incidents. About Pannalalji, I'll tell you. Once in Kolkata, in some big festival, in those days, there were no auditoriums. They were all in open grounds with pandals. And so the speakers used to blare with the music all around.
Or cinema halls, or movie halls, either open grounds or movie halls. Probably,
open grounds, yeah. And so Panna Babu was playing Bhairavi. He was the last artist of that night. And Vilayat Chacha was outside sipping tea in that earthen little cup. The moment the Bhairavi started and the upper sa was reached by Panna Babu, Vilayat Chacha threw the earthen cup of tea and said, chalo, udhar chalte hain. And he went to listen to that Bhairavi. He was a great admirer of my uncle's music, Pannalalji's. And, he really admired and adored Pannalalji, so not only for his music, for his kind of deep spiritual approach, his elevating music, ethereal, I'll say, that he very often spoke to us about. Well, there's so many things to talk about him.
Should we listen to a little bit Shankara?
Yeah, just before that, I'll tell you one more thing.
Yeah.
When I asked him at your home, Hidayat Bhai, in New Jersey, I asked Chacha, what do you think about my father's uh, Ragdari side or his knowledge of sitar, and he said, Nayan Babu, एक चीज बताऊं, निखिल दादा को ऐसा ऐसा सितार मालूम था जो अच्छे सितारियों को भी नहीं पता, और ऐसा ऐसा गते उनके पास मुझे मिला. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, the gut in Yaman Kalyan, I think, has become so popular. It was, he said, it came to me as a revelation. He said, ये दादा का गत था. This one. This double dha is what Chacha added. My father made it as. It came as a revelation to me that this was my father's gut.
Wow, wow.
And he said, दादा से मैंने बहुत सारी गतें ली. So for me it was, I wish, my father was alive and present at that discussion that we had. My father was never claimed that this is my gut or that so and so. However, you're going to play the Shankara and then we'll talk about some guts also.
Oh. So let Ishaan be here because we will discuss on Gat and you will give some demonstration. Yeah. Thank you.
So you're playing the Shankara?
Ji.
Great.
It is very difficult to stop in the middle every time. That is the most difficult task for me during the session. Actually,
This
we're looking for.
this bandish in Shankara, Aso Dhita Langar Kare Barajori, it was one of his favorites, and this is a composition. In the Antara, you find the name of Vinod Pia, who was Tasadduk Hussain Khan Sahab of Agra Gharana, but he was not the composer. It was attributed to him. It was composed by Vilayat Hussain Khan Sahab's younger brother Nanne Khan Sahab, whose pen name was Shakil Pia, but he gave the name of Vinod Pia in this.
Mhm.
You must be knowing the Hidayat Bhai. You must be knowing this one. This
No,
one.
actually, I didn't. I didn't know this.
Okay.
I know the composition. I didn't know the story behind it.
Aji?
मैं composition पता है, लेकिन
हाँ.
I didn't know the story behind it.
उसमें है अचेरा पकड़ कर पैया मरोड़ी विनोद पिया मोरे निकट निडर मोरे लामान ये है अंतरा उसमें.
जी.
तो ये शकील पिया की बंदिश है.
अच्छा.
यानी नन्हे खान साहब की. And what a brilliant composition, and what justice has been done to it by Khan Sahab, Vilayat Khan Sahab. वाह वाह वाह.
क्या बात. नहीं, वही उसकी कहानी को समझ के और जो ताने भी इसमें आए हैं, सब लोग ये ताने बजाते हैं.
हाँ.
लेकिन लोग ये बात नहीं समझते हैं कि उन्होंने जो वो ताने बजाई हैं, वो स्पीड ज्यादा भी कर सकते थे, कम भी कर सकते थे, उसका वॉल्यूम भी बढ़ा सकते थे, वजन भी बढ़ा सकते थे, लेकिन वो उनका मिजाज था.
हाँ. और तान जस्ट फॉर तान सेक तो कभी नहीं उन्होंने बजाया. मतलब तैयारी दिखाने के लिए नहीं था. तान में एक म्यूजिक भरा हुआ था. हर तान में there was a particular message. There was a purpose behind every taan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look at his Todi recording with Zakir Bhai on tabla. His whole badhat is taan ka badhat hai पूरे परफॉर्मेंस में.
उसका और उस रिकॉर्डिंग का टोन भी, उस रिकॉर्डिंग का मिजाज भी इतना डिफरेंट है. उनका टोन, मिजाज और एंड आल्सो अकम्पनीमेंट में डिपेंड करता था कि कौन उनके साथ बैठा है.
हाँ.
बजाना भी उस हिसाब से चेंज होता था. जो कॉम्पोजिशंस बजाएंगे, उसकी बढ़त कैसे होगी.
देखिए, उनका जो जितना भी रिकॉर्डिंग्स है, पब्लिश्ड रिकॉर्डिंग्स, जिसमें टोनल क्वालिटी इज वेरी वेरी क्लियर एंड एविडेंट. To me, it sounds like he has played all different sitars. Take his Puriha, take his Gara, take his Yaman, take his later part Purvi, Hamir, then Darwari. All the recordings, all different.
But his tone also from the same sitar kept on changing over the years. Kept on changing.
That's the magic. That's the magic,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Same instrument, same person, but how the tonality changes, how his vision for the sound changed over the period of time.
सितार
I'd like
के
to ask actually
ये
Ishaan.
जो हाँ
Sorry, sorry, आप कुछ बोल रहे थे. I didn't mean to
नहीं मैं
interrupt.
कह रहा हूँ ये जो डिफ्लेक्टेड स्ट्रोक जो उनका दा बजाते थे डिफ्लेक्टेड, जिसमें
थोड़ा सा
और
समझाइए
एक
ना.
एडिशनल टोनल क्वालिटी आ गया है ना, जैसे कि ये देखो फॉर एग्जांपल नॉर्मल स्ट्रोक एंड दिस, ये जो मिजराब को नीचे से ऊपर की तरफ स्ट्रोक देना, दैट was another beautiful sound tone that he brought to sitar.
ये हम लोगों का प्रोग्राम था 97 की बात है, सैन फ्रांसिस्को में.
हाँ.
तो शुजात भाई भी टूर पे थे, मैं भी टूर पे था. That was the one and only tour that we all three did together. तो पहला हाफ मैं बजाता था अब्बा के साथ, सेकंड हाफ शुजात भाई बजाते थे. तो सैन फ्रांसिस्को में कॉन्सर्ट हुआ और मैं इस एंगल पे बैठा कि उनकी साइड से उनका हाथ दिख रहा था मुझे, जो बड़ा रेयरली होता था कि हम या तो पीछे बैठे होते हैं, कभी कभी ऑडियंस में बैठे होते हैं तो सामने से देख रहे होते थे, तो वो एंगल कभी नहीं, या सितार हाथ में होता था. तो इस यहाँ पे मैं स्टेज पे बैठा हूँ और साइड से मैं एंगल देख रहा हूँ. तो कॉन्स्टेंटली मैं आपको बताऊं, कॉन्स्टेंटली देयर वाज नो टू स्ट्रोक played from the same place. So very next day we were playing in Seattle और तो अब्बा ने मुझे sorry Portland. तो very next day अब्बा ने मुझे होटल रूम में कॉल किया, कहने लगे कि सुबह तार चेंज करने हैं. तो मैं आया उनके कमरे में, उनके सितार के तार चेंज कर रहा था. तब अब्बा नहाने गए एंड नहा के जब तक निकले तो मैं उनका सितार चेंज करके वो जगह पे ला रहा था. तो यही सब चीजें कर रहा था, यू नो, जस्ट फिगरिंग आउट कि कहाँ से क्या टोन आता है. तो ही वाज वेरी हैप्पी कि आई वाज थिंकिंग एंड आई वाज एनालाइजिंग ऑन दिस थिंग. एंड देन अगेन व्हाट ही सेड वाज, ही सेड वेरी सिंपल. ही सेड देखो, इसको टोन के तरीके से मत सोचो, लेकिन जब तुम बात करते हो किसी सब्जेक्ट में तो उसकी इमोशंस में तुम्हारी आवाज देखो, जब नाराज होते हो तो कैसे बढ़ती है आवाज, टोन चेंज होता है. जब प्यार से बात करते हो, जब रिक्वेस्ट करते हो या जो भी बोल रहे हो, वो जैसे टोन से चेंज होता है उसका, उसी को स्ट्रोक्स में अपने लेके आओ.
क्या बात.
तो एक कहानी और उस कहानी में का इम्पैक्ट, इट्स नॉट मोनोटोन, इट्स नॉट रोबोटिक कि आप एक जैसे बोले चले जा रहे हैं, यू नो. It has expressions, it has feelings, which your music needs to have.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was, you know, I want to welcome Ishaan Bhai also, and this is such a wonderful tradition that we have of getting the next generation into the fold, and I remember so many times sitting with Abba, just like you, and being a part of these interviews without saying a word, or and just being there, and it's really wonderful. अभी थोड़े दिन पहले मैं एक कव्वाली के प्रोग्राम पे गया था, तो वहाँ पे उनका 7 साल का बच्चा उनके साथ स्टेज पे बैठा हुआ गाना गा रहा था और बड़े क्यूटली गा रहा था. तभी भी मुझे यही अपनी बचपना भी याद आया कि उस तरीके से. But Ishaan is not the right, necessarily the right person to ask this to, because he's an old soul and he's so enthralled in music, but he's still the next generation, and would really love to know your impact, and when you see such stalwarts and when you think about them, when you listen to their music, what are your feelings? What are your thoughts? Because as I said, you're an old soul, but you are still your age.
Well, I definitely am my age. But no, first of all, thank you so much for welcoming me in the middle of this beautiful discussion, which I don't want to interrupt. But I mean, what can I say about the impact that, you know, Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab particularly has had, among so many other stalwarts and legends, of course, and of course being part of such a family, such an illustrious family, can't be more blessed. But I feel that another what do you say, another vista that opens up when you're part of such a legacy is that you get exposed very early, or relatively much earlier, to the music, to the thought processes, and most importantly, I feel, to the personal interactions that my father or my grandfather must have had with all of these
Legends.
no, I think legends is an overused word now. So it's
Yeah.
these iconic personalities who took the turn, in every millennium, and who brought about a new voice for their own art form. So Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab ko to, I mean, I can't remember a single day where I haven't heard his music. I'm not, and this is not exaggerated, because and every time that it happens, or unka sitar jab bhi sunte hain, not just sitar, there are so many recordings where he goes into a singing passage, and I'm just enamored by, like everybody else, the amount, the volume of musical thoughts and content that he possessed. Because I mean, if you see the range, the variety, the vastness, वो ठुमरी गा रहे हैं तो वो सितार पे ऐसे बज रहा है, वो ध्रुपद गा रहे हैं तो वो ऐसे ये आ रहा है, and of course everything else, so it sometimes it felt like, here is the most complete, or the epitome of music that we are being exposed to. So yeah, so he's always been, of course, for everybody, all musicians across generations, but personally I can say he's been like the ultimate role model, or the inspiration for music. As of course I play the tabla, I learned the tabla, but then somehow or the other I feel he's had a tremendous impact on maybe on my subconscious mind and on my thought process.
Couple of recordings of, I think, Vilas Khani or Sud Kalyan. At least 2 recordings I have heard from you playing on sitar.
Oh,
So
no.
on that also,
It's what Ishaan mentioned, that we're so blessed to be born into a family of musicians, because not only from a very, very early on are we getting exposed to such great level of music, but also what our parents, our elders, the people that they interacted with, the conversations they had, the things that they appreciated, and the things that they disliked, or the people that they appreciated, the music that they listened to, really gave us so much of subliminal taaleem,
Exactly.
and understanding. So it is we are very, very, very fortunate people, and I always say this, that for the people who believe in Pichla Janam, I think musicians ke ghar mein paida hona is really something related to your old janam of good deeds, because you come
For example,
such kindness.
sorry, yeah.
Ji.
नहीं, अभी याद आया, like for example what you were telling me about, what you were just telling about being born in such a family. So one of the things that I recollect is that bachpan mein, when Baba used to, of course I was like playing around with the tabla all the time, but to inspire me to do more riyaz and to enhance that, he used to tell me stories of Khan Sahab and my grandfather, and so I want him to maybe narrate that anecdote once again. So about the riyaz that they used to have.
Their riyaz sessions, I used to tell him, so that it penetrates his system also. How Vilayat Khan Sahab and my father used to practice together. They would decide, Khan Sahab would decide, chalo aaj 10,000 sapat marenge, 10,000 sapats, and my father on Nadin Dinna or 10,000 times together. My father used to tell me, by the time it was 7,000 or 8,000, you could see blood dripping from Vilayat Khan Sahab's fingers on the strings. You could see blood streaming down the string. And likewise, my father, with, let's say he did Dhir ka riyaz simultaneously with him, the skin on the palm would slowly start peeling off and also give signs of blood coming out. What determination they had. And Vilayat Chacha, as he played, let's say a few hundred, and something went wrong, he would start counting from 1 again.
Yeah.
His count was always that कि अगर 10,000 क्या कहने 100 भी बजानी है तो 99 पे गलती होगी तो it starts from the beginning.
फिर से start.
और इस उम्र तक भी नैन भाई till the last stages of his life अब्बा सितार लिया अपना उसको मिलाया. एक तो उनका मिलाने का तरीका भी एक कमाल था. I mean, people talk about miracles in music. I swear I used to witness this on a regular basis. और मेरे दिमाग में है, मेरी आंखों के सामने है, मेरे कान में है, but I cannot express it even. उनका मिलाने का तरीका, जिस तरीके से सा से मा, सा से पा, सा से गा, वो जा रहे हैं और सितार का टोन चेंज हो रहा है. It's like मिलाना नहीं, जवारी हो रही है साज में.
और मिलाने के बाद तरबों को छेड़ना,
सुभान अल्लाह,
क्या माहौल बन जाता था.
सुभान अल्लाह.
वाह वाह वाह.
वो सास को मिला के अब्बा इस उम्र तक, मतलब लास्ट स्टेजेस तक उनके, और बैठे और निखात से वो कर रहे हैं, हम सुन रहे हैं तो परफेक्ट सुनाई दे रहा है. और वो 10, 15, 20, 25 मिनट लगे हुए हैं उसी चीज को करने में. तो फाइनली जाके पूछा अब्बा कि क्या, बिकॉज हमें एकदम सही सुनाई दे रहा है, कहने लगे असर नहीं आ रहा है.
क्या
तो वो असर, मतलब लास्ट स्टेज में भी उस डिटर्मिनेशन, उस परफेक्शन, वो that thing never went down for Abba.
Or when we were talking about the riyaz part, another thing that my father said was, ऐसा रियाज किया उन्होंने कि मतलब चेहरा उनका जैसे दूध को खीर बनाने के लिए जो जैसे उबाला जाता है, वो वैसे सूख जाता है बिल्कुल. इतना सा दूध है, इतना बन जाता है रबड़ी या कोई बनाने के लिए. उसी तरह से उनके गाल भी, they went deep sunk cheeks, and red eyes, deprived of sleep.
तपस्या है ये. This is beyond riyaz. This is beyond riyaz. This is tapasya.
Tapasya. Tremendous. तो ये सब रियाज की स्टोरी बहुत मेरे फादर से हमने उनका रियाज के बारे में सुना. फादर का भी रियाज बहुत फेनोमिनल था. खैर, now let's touch a few other things, like for example his musicality not only gelled so much with his younger brother Imrat Khan Sahab. He used to play so many duets at one time. My father told incidents about Hafiz Ali Khan Sahab sitting in front, Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab sitting in front in Bombay, Amir Hussain Khan Sahab, all of them, Habibuddin Khan Sahab, and both the brothers playing, and my father on tabla. And then there's that picture you showed some time back, the first time Khan Sahab played a duet with Ali Akbar Khan Sahab in 1958 at the Brabant Cricket Stadium in Bombay.
What Sursinger Samsat or?
What
Sursinger Samsat or any other?
Sursinger Samsat, yes. And my father on tabla, and on the other side, Pandit Shamta Prasad ji, who unfortunately couldn't come last minute. So Abdul Karim was on the other tabla. Likewise, Vilayat Khan Sahab and Bismillah Khan Sahab idea combination was my father's in 1964 as kind of, you can say, the first fundraising program for Sangeet Mahabharati that he wanted to organize. He suggested to Vilayat Khan Sahab कि बिस्मिल्लाह भाई के साथ अगर duet कराएं, तो he said that's a good idea. And in Bombay's newly built Shanmughanand Hall in those days, there was still no air conditioning. They were just hanging fans. and we had a full house. And on tabla for the first half, it was Ustad Ahmed Jan Thirakwa Khan Sahab, and on the second half was my father on tabla. And this was a phenomenal program which went on for 5 hours with 2 intermissions.
Wow.
And they gelled with each other so well that immediately the HMV, his master's voice recording company, I forget the name, the gentleman, he was, I think, VK Dubey, I think. He was present. He said, we'll record. And then that record came out with Gurjari Thodi and the Bhairavi and Chaiti and all that. You know. So that idea, initially when my father was, before the concert, when there was, a lot of publicity going on, press conferences, there were people who used to criticize, how can sitar and shehnai go together? And my father would say, sitar, a staccato instrument, stroke instrument, and shehnai, a long instrument, that the contrast itself is the secret of good art.
Mm-hmm. Kya baat hai?
So all these are beautiful memories, and talking about Vilayat Khan Sahab, maybe we can रात भर बात कर सकते हैं.
Dada, you were
We do.
telling that
We do end up doing that.
और तैयारी का जो, especially his speed, his control on the instrument, not only phenomenal, it is out of the world. And he didn't play taan at the super. Look at the Puriya taans, his recordings. It wasn't meant to. He wouldn't be imagining an imaginary enemy in front or a rival and then play the taans. No. Because there is, you find sometimes sitar players playing fast taan and looking here and there. Koi hai kya? There is an imaginary. In school we learned about Don Quixote. There's an imaginary enemy, and you go close, and then you see it's a windmill. So Khan Sahab never played a taan with that in mind. He brought out, exploited the instrument's possibility and his own riyas to its peak.
His instrument became a vessel for him to say and speak and feel and connect in whichever way he wanted.
And he and sitar became one.
Absolutely.
Dada, you were saying you would give some demonstration or explain a little bit on his gut.
I can tell you that how much I have been influenced by his music, his sitar. Every sitar player is also a natural composer also. So, for example, I'll give you one or two of my compositions, which are clearly influenced by Khan Sahab. these are humbly I can put forward. These were my compositions, but you can see the Vilayat Khan impression in that, you know.
नैन भाई, हम लोग आजकल बहुत ज़्यादा म्यूजिक की दुनिया में बात चलती है अबाउट इंडिविजुअलिटी एंड ओरिजिनल, कि ये मेरा ओरिजिनल है और इंडिविजुअलिटी होनी चाहिए. I think you can't be a musician if you're not inspired and there's no silsila in your music, in your composition.
Absolutely.
So there has to be, in everything that you do, there has to be silsila, there has to be inspiration, that where it came from. And then and then somewhere along the lines you find your own self and you find your own voice. And that finding your own voice in yourself is a part of the journey, which will automatically happen. You can't force it.
Yes.
But even in that individuality, if there is no silsila, if there is no understanding of where it comes from, people don't wake up one day and create something. It doesn't happen. That's just doesn't happen. If they can't, you can see it in their compositions, you can see it in their words, you can see it in their even expressions, where and how it comes together.
Yeah.
So और अब्बा का भी म्यूजिक, अब्बा ने इतने लोगों से म्यूजिक, बल्कि हर एक इंसान जो भी उनकी जिंदगी में आया, उनसे उन्होंने कुछ लिया और अपने म्यूजिक में उसको कहीं ना कहीं से इंस्पायर होके
Absolutely. You know, just like his role models, not only his own family members, his father, his uncle, his grandfather, his maternal uncles and maternal grandfather, those were the talim sources and the influences, as I said, Fayaz Khan Sahab, Abdul Karim Khan Sahab, Mushtaq Hussain Khan Sahab. Somehow, it just happens that since my childhood, my father ingrained these musical values in me since I was a very little kid. And so I also, you know, they were role models for me also, right up to Amir Khan Sahab, you know, Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab. They were role models for me too. And besides my father's main body of talim, and you know, at heart, since just like, you know, Vilayat Khan Sahab was at heart a vocalist, and it came out through his. For me, I feel blessed that I got talim in tabla and vocal music also, and that helped me immensely to you know, take up sitar also on the same footing as the tabla. Although tabla is still today my main area of work.
But sitar is better.
But I mean, I almost sitar is like step brother for me in compared to the tabla. But then, sometimes I feel one thing I should clarify here: being a tabla player, it's so easy for me to transfer many of the relas and qaidas and tihais and tukdas into sitar, but I have never done that. The sense of lay is a different matter. But I could have borrowed so much from my tabla repertory and translated into sitar. I could have done that. I never did that because I didn't want my sitar to lose its identity as a sitar.
You know what, नैन भाई, 100% आपके बजाने में ये बात 100% है कि आपने obviously आप इतने बड़े लेवल के तबला नवाज हैं, तो आप सेंस ऑफ ले तो आप में किस लेवल पे होगी, मतलब हम अंदाजा ही लगा सकते हैं. बट जो सितार का मिजाज है वो आपने हमेशा सितार में रखा है और तबले को सितार में इंटरप्रेट नहीं किया है. क्या बात है
यार, तुम्हारा प्यार है, मोहब्बत है, तुम बोल रहे हो उतना हमारे लिए बहुत है. लेकिन यही चीज एक दिन you had told me that Chacha Vilayat Khan Sahab had also mentioned this to me, to you, about my sitar, and when you related the whole thing to me, I was overwhelmed, you know, that what Chacha thought about my sitar, and that was a big reward for me.
No, he was very fond of you. I mean, I don't need to tell you that. You've spent more years than I have with him. But he was extremely fond of you. And especially, going back to the times of our fathers together and their journeys together and their struggling and their riyaz and wo mahol. It is so always insightful to spend time with you, Nayan bhai. Like
खासा
last time,
हाँ
न्यूयॉर्क में हम लोग शाम गुजारा था, इतना मजा आया था, and always such wonderful conversations and inspirational conversations with you.
the great gift Khan Sahab has left behind for coming generations is not only his music, his thought, but a whole lot of recordings which recently Pandit Arvind Parikh ji, the chief disciple of Khan Sahab, from his collection, made a series of listening sessions at the National Center for Performing Arts, NCP, in Bombay. And I'll tell you, each recording is something, a lifetime's lesson. And as many musicians must listen to those. And I can always request Arvind Parikh ji to again play those records for musicians, for listeners, for students, connoisseurs. My God, Khan Sahab, so many other aspects of Khan Sahab that were hitherto not known to many people. His immense repertoire of Drupad Dhamar, Khayal, Thumri, and he sang and he would speak and then talking about his own riyaz, then about his interaction with great masters of the past, and how honestly he would say, okay, this particular gat is actually the work of so and so Khan Sahab, For example, that he said, yeah, Hamid Hussain Khan Sahab ka gat hai, who was his uncle in a distant way. So, I mean, we got to learn so much from Arvind Parikh ji's collections, and this is a great legacy. Arvind Parikh ji is also is doing a great work training so many aspirants and to carry on Vilayat Khan Sahab's legacy.
नहीं, अरविंद चाचा ने उन्होंने इतना खूबसूरती से सारा उनकी तालीम और information about music, he's put it together so beautifully. And one of the best things about Arvind Chacha is he's very generous with his knowledge.
Very, very.
Very generous with his knowledge, and he's very happy to give, and which is very important because ये सारा oral tradition hai.
And Arvind Kaka and Vilayat Khan Sahab were the same age.
Ji.
So not only were they Guru Shishya, but they were great friends. And because of Khan Sahab and Arvind ji's, talim from Khan Sahab, he too, Arvind ji, has seen a fantastic zamana of music and musicians. And there are so many anecdotes we relish listening from him about great masters of the
I really miss my post-lunch conversations with Arvind Chacha. उनके घर पे जाके I would have lunch with him. I stayed when I'm in Bombay, I stay with him so much. And खाने के बाद हम लोग बैठ के and he will वो एक कहानी, मतलब I spent really so much time, but वो एक नई कहानी बताते थे with so much love and enthusiasm, and again, all these people are such fantastic storytellers that they make you feel present in that moment with them. And Shukar hai ki Arvind Chacha again is very generous, and he's put the history together, and all those anecdotes he's sort of recorded them, so it's for the next generations who will benefit hugely from that.
His house was also open to the first rehearsal between Vilayat Khan Sahab and Bismillah Khan Sahab, when my father suggested let's sit together, because शनाई पे मसीद खानी तो नहीं बजेगा ना, और रजा खानी के आसपास तो कुछ बच जाता है, you know, so क्या करें, इसका रास्ता निकालें. तो विलायत खान साहब said, नहीं दादा, एक बार बिस्मिल्लाह भाई के साथ हम लोग बैठते हैं. So the venue was Arvind Parikh ji's home.
Right.
Now was the main problem, how to get Thirakua Khan Sahab. My father suggested to him, Khan Sahab, ऐसा ऐसा है, rehearsal. क्या चीज? बोले rehearsal. बोले वो क्या चीज है? बोले नहीं, जरा प्रोग्राम होने वाला है परसों, तो थोड़ा बैठ के देख लेते हैं. लाहौल विला को उन्होंने कहा, हमने दंगल बजाया, हमने महफिल बजाया, ये क्या चीज है? बोले. So to convince him was quite a massive problem, and get him there, and then there was hours and hours of planning what they would play 2 days later. So memorable moments. I was probably about 8 years old, but I remember every second of that concert, every minute. And I'll tell you another concert. Shanta Prasad ji was on tabla with Chacha at Shanmukhanand. So my father told, Thirakua Khan Sahab used to live with us the last almost a full decade of his life. So Khan Sahab, चले, आज विलायत भाई का सितार है, और शांता भाई भी बजाएंगे साथ में, गुदई भाई बजाएंगे साथ में. तो अच्छा, चलो बेटा. शेरवानी बिरवानी पहन के, टोपी वगैरह अत्तर बत्तर लगा के निकल गए. And I went along with them, with Thirakua Khan Sahab and my father, and then it was a full house. So they were in the front row. No, first we went into the green room, and a big green room. Khan Sahab, the room was completely packed with music lovers and musicians, and Vilayat Chacha was playing Alap in Mian Malhar. And seeing my father and Thirakua Khan Sahab, he just stood up suddenly, and they told him, no, carry on, you know. So he went on with the Alap and Jod. He came on the stage, and straight away he started the Gat, Gauda Malhar mein, with Shanta Prasad ji on the tabla. And I didn't get a seat. I was just in my early teens then. So I sat right behind Khan Sahab, and between Khan Sahab and Shanta Prasad ji. And oh, what a memorable Gaud Malhar he played. And Thirakua Khan Sahab and my father were sitting in the front row besides many other musicians. What power packed. I'll tell you, there are instances where I was sitting in an auditorium, also at Shanmukhanand, Khan Sahab playing Jog. And I felt as if electric currents are going through my chair, through my seat, completely charged, and my goosebumps, you know. Khan Sahab, Vilayat Chacha, जिस तरह से उस राग को बढ़ा रहे थे, जिस तरह से बाद में गतों में तान वगैरह कर रहे थे, I was completely electrified. That particular program, I think Nizamuddin Khan Sahab was on tabla. Oh, so many concerts I have witnessed. Shanta Prasad ji, my father, Kishan Maharaj ji, Muhammad Ahmad Khan Sahab, so many. Once Thirakua Khan Sahab's memorial program, first after he passed away, so Vilayat Chacha was playing at Birla Hall, Birla Matushri. And he came, he was getting late, and my father was getting panicky. What's happening? I'm Vilayat bhai, abhi tak pahunche nahi. He came exactly 2 minutes before the concert should start. And from the case, he took out the sitar, it was ready tuned. He said, Dada, baith jate, shuru karte hain. And in 2 minutes, he was on the stage. Dot on time, he started Shri.
Shri, that recording is there on YouTube.
Acha.
That recording is there on YouTube.
That was the first memorial program for Thirakua Khan Sahab. And I think Muhammad Ahmad Khan Sahab was on tabla. Yes, it was. And something went wrong with his tabla. Luckily, there was a spare tabla. I quickly tuned it in the green room and brought it on the stage. And Muhammad Ahmad Khan Sahab changed the tablas, and he struck it, and it sounded absolutely in sur. And Vilayat Chacha was so happy that, that I tuned the tabla that way. Shri was followed by a memorable Tilak Kamod. Kya baat? What concerts, what performances.
What beautiful memories, and what an era of music, and so fortunate to have been a part of that generation.
And then another concert, Ville Parla Music Circle, whole night.
If you just allow me to play that little bit, that concert, where just few minutes,
Sure.
then we'll hear about Ville Parle concert. Yeah.
बाबा साहब, डॉक्टर मेनन, श्री घोष, पारंपरिक और आज की सभाएं और श्री भारतीवाला साहब, मुझे बड़े अफसोस के साथ ये बोलना पड़ रहा है कि चंद दिनों पहले, थोड़े ही दिनों पहले हम यहाँ कॉन्सर्ट पे आया करते थे और उस्ताद अहमद जान खान थिरकवा हमारे सामने बैठ करके सुनते थे, हमारे साथ बजाते थे। अभी चंद दिनों का वाक़या है, जब पिछली बार मैं यहाँ मुंबई में था तो सारे दिन और सारी रात हम लोगों ने उनके साथ गुजारा और आज वो हमारे साथ नहीं हैं। हिंदुस्तान के बहुत बड़े आर्टिस्ट, लोग कहते हैं कि हाँ भाई उनकी उम्र हो गई थी, बहुत उम्र हो गई थी। मैंने यही बोला लोगों से कि आर्टिस्ट की उम्र उस वक्त खत्म हो जाती है जब उसका आर्ट खत्म हो जाता है।
क्या बात।
मैं समझता हूँ थिरकवा खान साहब की कुछ उम्र नहीं थी, उनकी अभी जिंदा रहने की उम्र थी, क्योंकि वो वैसे ही बचा रहे थे जैसा मैंने 30 साल पहले सुना था उन्हें। तो उनकी मरने वाली उम्र नहीं थी, चाहे वो 80 साल के थे, चाहे वो 150 साल के थे, लेकिन उस वक्त तक आर्टिस्ट की उम्र बिल्कुल जवान और वो आर्टिस्ट जिंदा रहने के लायक है जब तक वो अपना नया नया काम सारी दुनिया को पेश कर रहा है।
वाह।
मुझे बड़ा अफसोस है और बहुत गमगीन है दिल मेरा कि खान साहब बहुत करीब के लोग हमारे थे और बहुत बड़े बुजुर्ग इस वक्त के थे। वो नॉर्थ इंडियन म्यूजिक तबले के। मैं अल्लाह से दुआ करता हूँ एक छोटा बन करके कि अल्लाह उनको जन्नत नसीब करे, और हम लोग जो भी अपने अच्छी फीलिंग से आप सब लोग आए हैं और हम अपना हम्बल म्यूजिक जिनकी रूह को पहुंचा रहे हैं, अल्लाह उनको सवाब पहुंचाए।
Kya baat? That was the program I was talking about. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah. Yes, we can hear you. Haidar Adina Sahab uploaded this recording, so thanks to him.
Great. So I was talking about another concert, a whole night concert I heard Khan Sahab play, Ville Parle Music Circle. Started at about 9 or 10 in the night and finished in the morning. Shuddha Kalyan, a very extensive Shuddha Kalyan. And after intermission was Malkons and so many other ragas. Those are great moments I cherish always. What I cherish most, if I can humbly put forth, is the last time that I accompanied him at NCP's Tata Theatre. And Shujat Bhai was on Tanpura. And Khan Sahab played his ki raag er naam?
Yamni.
No, Yamni na.
Saat Saravali.
Sant Sarab.
That day he played
Yamni. Oh, that day he played Yamni. Okay. And I was accompanying him on the tabla. Right in the beginning, when I entered the green room and took out my tabla, it just happened to be exactly tuned to his sitar. and he was playing a kind of a madhyalegat, and I gave Theka, and he said, Shujat Babu, नयन बाबू सितार भी बजाते हैं इसलिए ऐसा ठेका बज रहा है. He said, that's one. The other thing is, on the stage, as he played the Vilambit, and he was expounding on that rag, there were moments where it went to almost whisper level playing. And my tabla, I tried my best to play it as softly as possible, to the point of it being inaudible. And he just looked at me and smiled and said, Sitar bajate ho na? And that was on stage during the performance. And then after intermission, he played a beautiful dadra. And he turned it into Keherwa to give me opportunity for laggis. So I reeled out a number of laggis, old traditional laggis. And he gave me 2 or 3 times opportunities for laggis. Finally, when the concert got over, as he was receiving the applause so gracefully, beautifully, he was just standing up and doing the adab. It was a full house, standing ovation. Shujat Bhai and myself, we stepped a little bit behind as he was acknowledging the applause. And it just happened that suddenly his eyes fell on me, and he took the mic again. First he said that if this is the kind of appreciation you are giving me, he said कि अल्लाह से दुआ मांगिए कि मैं और 10 साल आपको ऐसे ही सुना सकूं. That was probably his last concert. His eyes fell on me, and he said, again took the mic and said, आज नयन बाबू ने ऐसा तबले पे जो लग्गी बजाया, हम लोग बचपन में हम लोग मीलों जाते थे ये इस किस्म के लग्गी सुनने के लिए. ये लग्गी आज नहीं है, खत्म हो गया तबले में. बोले वो पुराने ऐसे लोगों के हाथों से हमने लग्गी सुने हैं, तो आज वो लग्गी नयन के हाथ से आज आया, तो मैं बहुत खुश हूं. ये तालीम दिखता है. And I touched his feet, he hugged me. What a blessing.
जो आप बात कर रहे थे अभी, आपने के तबला मिला के लाए आप पहले से, it's you have to be so in tune to music and Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab to be able to do that, because for those of you who didn't know, Abba did not tune his sitar to C sharp or D or 440.
Yeah.
Abba used to listen to the timbre of the sitar. और वो कभी आपको रिकॉर्डिंग में मिलेगा कि उनका सी शार्प से चढ़ा हुआ है साज, कभी आपको रिकॉर्डिंग में मिलेगा कि सी शार्प से उतरा हुआ है साज, क्योंकि वो टिम्बर को सुनते थे डिपेंडिंग ऑन वेयर ही वाज क्लाइमेटिकली.
सितार कहाँ अच्छा
बोल रहा है वो साज.
वाह वाह वाह.
सो आप कितने उनके साथ इन ट्यून थे नैन भाई, और आप उनके कितने फोकस थे फॉर यू टू बी एबल टू रियलाइज दैट एंड tune your tabla and bring it. It really shows about understanding. It really shows about understanding, and then everything else makes sense. कि जो accompaniment में वो चाह रहे थे वो आप deliver इसलिए कर रहे थे because it starts there. ये बात महसूस करने की है. तालीम एक हद तक आपको मिलती है, सब कुछ है, लेकिन अगर आप ये बात को समझें ना और इस महसूस ना करें उस लेवल पे, तो ये ट्रांसलेट नहीं होगी कभी.
Really, yeah. It just I have no words to explain this kind of a musical bonding, musical intuition, passion, everything put together. I mean, it just happened that the tuning was just perfect between me and Vilayat Chacha.
It's very important for the next generation of musicians to really realize the depth of what that is. On a, yes, on a superficial level, it's one thing, but on a deeper level, if musicians of the next generation realize that how much in sync, how much in tune with music, and what is the aesthetic of that tuning. It's not about कि आपने तिहाई जो बजाई तो मैंने exactly वही बजाई या it's not जवाब सवाल नहीं है. It's on a very much greater and a deeper level. And all these stories, like in time, have so much more meaning. All these incidents in time have so much more meaning. Each phrase out of each stroke out of a buzz music in sitar keeps on evolving as we evolve with our lives, in our thinking. Our understanding evolves, and then we realize that इसमें एक और depth है, एक और level of depth है, और एक और level of depth है. It's incredible how much, like, ये कितना ये लोग इस काम में डूबे हुए थे, इसमें 24 hours a day for them to have that.
ये तो मैंने तो मेरा chemistry बताया. मैं there are some old recordings of my father and him, and there you will see he plays a certain passage or whatever, and immediately comes my father's reply to that, giving an extension to that thought. Not just it's sawal jawab. It's not sawal jawab. It's each one was contributing to the other's discussion, the musical discussion that was going on. One is contributing to the other and extending the whole subject. So it was back and forth between my father and him. So there also, it's something to study, the chemistry between Khan Sahab and my father. I mean, in other words, between sitar and tabla. And yet, at no point do you feel interruption or any, it's as if it's one music that's going on. Both of them going back and forth, but it's one clean flow of music.
Dada, one point can I ask here? Sometimes we also, kind of struggle or suffer a little bit in terms of getting the proper accompaniment.
Yes.
Right. Sometimes what happens, the tabla accompanists who are accompanying us, they have something practiced or rehearsed, and whatever is practiced, that is being delivered on the stage. There is no, kind of connection between the things, the subject that you just mentioned. So, what are your advice for the young exponents of tabla players, accompanists who will accompany this type of sitar, Khan Sahab's type of sitar?
Yes, good point you have raised. Here I can say every tabla player, every musician, but every tabla player must be a vocalist at heart. He must be not just gungunana, but अंदर से एक गवैयापन जो है वो आना बहुत जरूरी है. तब जाके राग का समझ आ जाएगा, सितार को कैसे संगत करना, सरोद हो, सितार हो, जो भी दे. 95% of the time you see a tabla player actually not listening to the musical flow and idea of the main artist, because he's busy planning what's going to be my next rela, or what the next solo turn, what shall I play. He's busy planning that.
While playing alap, I see some people are counting. Absolutely.
And and so it is very important that the tabla player completely delves into the main artist's music and becomes a part of that whole thing. And then during accompaniment, the exact agar वो तबलिया अंदर से वो राग का मजा ले सकता है, वो उस बात का मजा ले सकता है, then naturally there will be a flow of the right compositions coming through his fingers, whether it is rela, peshkar, qaida, whatever. it'll build. It'll be improvisation on the spot. It'll build and give an extension to that melodic idea which the main artist did through his rhythmic instrument. He should complement that particular idea and give an extension to that thought. तो इसके लिए कोई भी तबलिया has to be a musician, not just a percussionist. Percussion, here also I'll say one point. Tabla is a subject already which has crossed percussion. Tabla is the only percussion instrument which can bring about music, a bigger dimension. It goes across percussion music.
किशन महाराज जी ने
हाँ जी?
किशन महाराज जी ने लंदन में बात बोली थी, हम लोग उनके होटल रूम में बैठे हुए थे, तो कहने लगे ठेका ऐसा होना चाहिए जिसमें मेलोडी सुनाई दे।
बिल्कुल
कि जो मुखड़ा है बंदिश का और जो फील है वो ठेका बजे और समझ में आ जाए, और बंदिश ऐसी होनी चाहिए जिसमें ठेका नजर आ जाए कि आप विदाउट रिदम आप उसको सुने और आपकी बॉडी में वो रिदम फील आए।
क्या बात।
और आप विदाउट मेलोडी आपके फील वो आए कि जो मेलोडी आपके सामने खड़े हो जाए।
बहुत सही बात, बहुत सही बात। You know, an instance I'll tell you. Amir Khan Sahab was singing in Bombay, morning program. He was singing Bilas Khani, and my father was on tabla, and there was a point where he gave a gap. Probably he wanted to clear his throat or something. And there was just the two tanpuras behind and my father's theka. Nothing, no tirkit, nothing. And Amir Khan Sahab just about to catch up with his singing, but he gets choked. And I have a recording of that program. And where he gets choked and he recovers from it, it takes him some time and he says, "Wah bhaiya, kya theka baj raha hai?" He said, "Aisa lag raha hai tanpura baj raha hai," he said. You know, इसके लिए कोई भी तबला प्लेयर हो, बहुत अच्छी तरह से गाने की तालीम होनी चाहिए.
Dada and Bhaiya, I think you both will relate, because in this particular style, coming back to the mukra, coming back to the mukam with an amad, and again taking off from the next sum or little bit after a few matras, this is a hallmark. Like whenever we are coming back to the mukra, it is not a conclusive phrase. Sometimes we take it from there, from the next cycle with an extension of that particular improvisation or thoughts or ideas. And sometimes that is misunderstood as a conclusion. And as soon as the sum is there, some accompanies pick up the next solo piece without realizing that it is just a landing zone to some.
Yeah, that was just a comma.
That was just a comma. They understand it as a full stop or a paragraph end. So that becomes a very,
yes.
That cuts it off from there. Cut short kind of situation.
अब्बा हम लोगों को तालीम दे रहे थे और हम लोगों को, we were a bunch of us sitting over there and we were not getting it. So he said, the first and foremost thing, he said, the reason is that you're not listening.
Huh?
The reason you're not getting it is because you're not listening.
Right.
He said, if you listen, then you will see it's not that difficult, what I'm saying. It is not, you've made it either very big in your head space, or you've made it very small, or you made it irrelevant because you're just not listening. So you can't, if a musician, which is a big problem amongst all musicians, regardless of being tabla players or instrumentalists or vocalists or whatever, they don't listen. And if you start listening, then I think the appropriate response will be there. So you may be sitting on stage, I mean, and being there on stage, but you're not really listening to what's going on. Ali Abba Khan Sahab had once scolded his accompanist, saying that you're accompanying me to see what my requirement is. When I'm in your theka, when I'm giving you a chance, enhance the music. Understand the subject, make it relative. It should be a correct response. It shouldn't be. We're talking about Indian classical music and Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab and all these great people, and suddenly we take the conversation onto a beach party. It's got no relevance.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful analogy and example.
Yeah, it's got no relevance.
That's what we feel when we are doing some Vistar. Instantly, when we are coming back to Mukda and the tabla player is also mingling with that. It is just like that. We are discussing on classical music and there is a sudden
let's not be critical about people.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. As you said, what's the advice to younger tabla players? कि गाना सीखो, सिर्फ गाना चीजें याद करना नहीं, अंदर से एक गवैया बनने की कोशिश करो. थोड़ा भी गाए, लेकिन गवैयापन लगना चाहिए गाने में. आप समझ रहे हो मेरी बात को? यानी जो मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले कहा, सिर्फ गुनगुनाना नहीं, पर जब 2 लाइन भी गाओ तो ऐसा लगे गाने की तालीम है इनको. तो ये जब तक तबलिये के अंदर नहीं आएगा, तब तक तबले के अंदर म्यूजिक नहीं आएगा, परकशन ही रहेगा.
Nayan bhai, such inspirational, beautiful, wise words and stories and understanding and subtle aesthetics that you've spoken about today. I'm really glad this is out there for generations to watch and hear and understand. Thank you so much. 2 घंटे हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं.
We lost track of time.
Absolutely, ऐसा वक्त गुजर गया है. And always, whenever we meet and we speak about Abba, time just flies, and we end up doing that every time when we meet. Ishaan bhai, again, thank you so much. I'm so glad you were also a part of this.
It's a real pleasure and a privilege.
It really means to both myself and Ram bhai, we're both huge fans of Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab and the world of Indian classical music.
Let me
everyone in it.
It's an honor for me to be speaking about Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab. A great honor. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
We are blessed. And one thing on top of it, post-COVID, we have never seen such an 2-hour session, and the view count was around 100. So we had lot of viewers who were engaged, who were interacting in terms of comments. They were asking some questions, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow. That's why I didn't post those things. But thanks to all the viewers who were here. When the topic is Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, and when we are having the great personality like Dada here and also Bhaiya here, so so that is very special for ICMC and all of us. And for me in person, it was like live talim, and I am privileged to be here. Always I am the most privileged person probably to be in the forum with stalwarts like you. A lifetime learner.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hidayat, and thank you, Ramprapanna. Thank you.
We will conclude this session with a beautiful Desh by Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab with Pandit Nikhil Ghosh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
To end this concert of Indian classical music, Ustad Vilayat Khan, Nikhil Ghosh, and Ayana Deva Angadi play Alap and Gat in Pastintal from the raga Desh. In its ascending form, this raga consists of the following notes: C, D, F, G, B, C. In its descending form, it's roughly equivalent to the European Mixolydian mode.